Hey guys, thanks for checking out this clip of the So Yeah podcast. If you like what you hear, give it a like. If you want to hear more, give it a subscribe. You can hear our full podcast on Spotify, link down below. So, yeah. As we all know, or as I assume we all know, Urbex is a very controversial hobby again because of its questionable legality. So I say, let's go ahead and come to Urbex's rescue tonight and start on a more positive note, as most of this conversation, I'm sorry to say, will be a lot more hot, shall we say. So let's first talk about the pros of Urbexing. Michelle, once again, you are our guest host. You will be the first to go for all of our topics. So please, what are some pros that you think Urbex has to offer?
Well, I think that it's really, I love history, and I think that it's really cool to see how other people lived and to learn history. And just sometimes people can have like really cool hobbies and lifestyles, but they die or they go to a nursing home and there's no one there to learn about this stuff. And then you come in and you can see how awesome like Uncle George really was. And, you know, he had like these awesome dinosaurs built out of like beer cans or whatever. But you don't even know that unless you go there and take pictures. And so I think that there's just a lot to be seen, and some architecture is just beautiful and gorgeous, and you don't get a chance to see it unless you're going out and you're looking for it and trying to find it.
Yeah, Bright Sun Films actually has an amazing video that he since put up as unlisted, but I still have its link and I want to send it to you. He actually found a home with the power still on. The old man was a clockmaker, and they still had old home videos of him like watching his clocks and studying his clocks. Really, really cool. You actually got to know the residents of that house. It was super cool.
That was up close towards Canada, wasn't it?
I think it was in Canada.
It was creepy.
No, it wasn't. It was cool. You got to actually experience, you always wonder who lived here. And in this case, you know who lived there. But then again, I'm not creeped out by much, as you guys know. Cody, what about you, sir? What are some pros?
I mean, my feelings are very similar to Michelle's. I feel like you can learn a lot about how people lived and history that is forgotten. I feel like a lot of interesting history is like left to rot in places like this because it didn't change the world, it didn't start a war, it didn't like do anything substantial, but it is still fascinating and interesting, and it has its own little unique facet to share with us about how this person individually lived. And you never know what you're going to learn from it or what you can glean from it or the beautiful thing you will see. And also I just feel there's almost something artistic in the way that like a lot of these places, nature has started to like reclaim them. Like to see like the way nature starts to almost integrate with the structure of these buildings and homes. Uh, it's obviously breaking them down. And in 100 years, these homes will be nothing but rubble and a dream. But in the interim, in that little in between spot there before it does that, it's just like this. It's a beautiful mixture of like man-made structure and the natural world. And I love that imagery. I can't get enough of it. It's beautiful.
And John?
Um, uh,
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Okay, next topic. No, I'm
uh,
kidding.
repeat the question again for me because I was going into what Cody was saying there.
Oh, okay. Well, if you had a response for Cody, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead and ask the question again.
Okay, well, the question was, what pros do we think Urbex has to offer?
I mean, you get to experience things you might have not got to see, and you just get to have nostalgia trips on things like I said, I'm a retail junkie, so I want to go experience an abandoned Kmart for one last time. Go see what something has got hidden behind it, because I always, like I said, I like to know what junk they left there. I'm the hoarder who wants to go loot some stuff.
Abandoned Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Radio Shack, Radio Shack.
All right. Well, so my opinion on the pros of Urbex is that I feel like I think back to whenever I was a kid, like one of the most I loved just like staring at abandoned places all the time. Like I even knew where certain abandoned places was that I always wanted to explore, and I only ever explored one of them. But like for me, it was the intrigue of who used to live here. Why was it abandoned? Like what caused it, what was life like back in the day here. And I feel like Urbex, particularly the Urbex videos, it captures that mystery, the tragedy of vacancy. It's like, I feel like just those quiet walkthroughs, going down old corridors, looking into old rooms, like especially places that were once heavily populated, like malls, hotels, theaters. It really captures the essence of both the why and the what. Like, why was this place abandoned and what used to happen here? And especially for us 90s kids, because a lot of the places that are abandoned these days were our childhoods in some way. So to see it abandoned is like a part of your life is abandoned. So to see an urbexer take that one final walk through it, it's like they're keeping your childhood alive for you. Plus, it documents an otherwise forgotten piece of the past, in essence, giving it a final nod. And it's gone but not forgotten. And like you said, Michelle, the history of it, just all that stuff combined, makes for a really captivating experience to watch and to do. All right.
I think that also makes us more empathetic towards like people in general. When you're looking for the story of why this building was left, you're more empathetic in general to the rest of humans.
I agree. Yeah, something that I love is like to sometimes just stare at a space and say, okay, who stood here and what memory was made here?
I don't know if you would call it empathy or not, but when I watched abandoned videos on abandoned hospitals, when it looks like the hospital was just left suddenly, like they have people's charts or samples out on the thing, or it looks like they just had conducted a procedure. It makes me wonder, like, why did they just abandon this? What was happening to these people's lives when they suddenly said, you know what, we're just walking out, we're done.
It's amazing how that happens.
That patient's dead. Just leave him there. We'll leave that for the urban exploration.
Yeah.
Great YouTube exclusive. Don't worry, he's a bum. He's a bum. Don't worry about it.
It's amazing how much morbid fascination goes into it. Like, who died here? What crime caused this place to be abandoned? Like, our heads usually go someplace dark whenever we see an abandoned building, especially a hospital or a police station, something like that. Who died? Who got killed here?
We have a lot of abandoned schools here, and I just want to know why they're all abandoned.
That is a question.
You could tell so many freaking horror stories just looking at an abandoned school. What child's ghosts roam these halls?
I can tell you the answer.
Let's hear it, John.
You live in Georgia. You don't need no schooling.
And on the third day, God created the bolt action rifle so man could fight the dinosaurs and the homosexuals. I stole that line from a movie still accepted. You can all bite me. We've covered that topic pretty good. Let's go ahead and get into our next topic of the evening, guys. Let's talk about the cons of Urbex, because again, with all controversial hobbies, there are going to be pros and cons. So Michelle, tell us what you think some of the cons are.
Oh, well, you could get shot because some people, you think it's abandoned property, and actually, like, an acre behind this house is the person who owns the property, and they could shoot you. But also, a lot of abandoned places are left unmaintained, and so if you're just urban exploring somewhere and you fall through a floor or something falls on you, nobody knows you're there, and so you're kind of just so just stuff could happen. And nobody might not ever find out until you're part of somebody else's urban exploring trip.
I actually have come across some videos of guys who found like the imprints of where the bodies were found. Yeah, fun stuff. And Cody, how about you, sir? The cons?
I feel like to a certain extent you can almost, I don't know, there's just like a certain, when people do urban exploring a certain way, it's almost like you're commodifying like tragedy and urban decay, like you're profiting off of something that has happened that has caused this place to be abandoned. And if it's like a bad thing, it's kind of just like it has like it can have a real scummy feel, like like an overzealous tourist that like the overzealous tourist that like walks up Machu Picchu, like the pyramids, just to take a picture from the top, even though, literally no one's allowed to walk on them because they're historically significant and any wear and tear on them kind of wears them away. Sometimes there can be that vibe with people as they urban explore. Like they may not be actively meaning to, or they may not care, but they're actively like helping to overcommodify or destroy this tiny little sliver of history that they have found, as opposed to capturing it or simply documenting it. Feels more like grave robbing rather than documentation.
Cody, I didn't expect such a philosophical answer tonight, my friend. Your eyes were up in the air too, like you were just contemplating the meaning of life as you said that. That was just, wow. I'm kind of touched. Anyway. And John, how about you, sir? What are some cons of Urbex, unless you had a response to what Cody just said?
No, I kind of agree with what Michelle said. I kind of worry about, what could happen to you. And anytime in a lot of these places, I just look at them, these abandoned places or hospitals or restaurants or malls or whatever. I just look at them and they kind of look like a big tetanus to me.
Just get your tetanus shot. You'll be fine.
No.
Everybody.
Well, I mean, a tetanus shot will not cure a deep gash, I'm sure, from walking into some old rusted metal.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
All right, so for me, I mean, like it does just boil down to, yes, usually it is illegal. That can't be denied. Plus, it's dangerous. I see urbexers all the time go into some really nasty, moldy rooms and have no masks, no gear. And there's also no telling, like you said to Michelle, who you'll run into, whether it be a drug addict or a cop, less than lenient cop, especially if you do it by yourself. Like, what if you get hurt and there's no one with you and you can't get a signal and maybe you get stuck? What are you going to do? It also does breed bad eggs, like, urban explorers who cross the line. Like, there are unwritten rules to this hobby, and unfortunately, guys, they are broken all the time by urbexers who just don't know when to quit, which again I'll get into further in the conversation. But the biggest con to me is you're putting yourself against a lot of forces, because once again, this is an illegal hobby. Usually cops don't like you, property owners don't like you, really anybody who isn't a fan of Urbex doesn't like you and doesn't like Urbex overall. So you're definitely in a class by yourself if you commit to a hobby like this, which isn't good, because that means that like it's you up against the world. So in summation, it's illegal, it's dangerous, it breeds bad eggs, and it leaves you fending for yourself with a very small army.
This is off and on topic at the same time. Have you seen the new thing that prevents urban explorers when they break into buildings? It just immediately the lights come on and it starts blaring, "Attention, you are trespassing," and just blares it as loud as you can.
Yeah, but I've seen the videos of urbexers slowly and calmly walking past the speaker saying that, as if they can't even hear what it's saying. They don't care about that stupid crap.
Yeah. It'd be kind of terrifying, though, if it just suddenly happens and you're on abandoned property, then.
Well, I won't lie. As a kid, while I wasn't afraid of the Chuck E. Cheese robots, I was afraid of all electronic voices. So answering machines freaked me out. And I wonder if me going to an Urbex place now and the electronic voice yelling at me, it might stir up some old childhood trauma.
Urban exploring is for weird people like you and me.